So the journey back to work for survivors of brain injury generally falls within two scenarios. The first scenario is when a survivor tries to go back to their former role, their former job before their injury. And that can be a complicated process. For some people it can work out, for other people the demands of the job outweigh someone's cognitive or physical abilities post-injury. And the responses of other people can be complicated. Initially there's a feeling of goodwill, and employers and colleagues will do whatever it takes to get the person back into work. But when mistakes may be made, or things don't pan out, or the needs of the survivor are hard to meet in terms of adjustments and things like that, then often that goodwill can expire over time, or the goodwill of work colleagues isn't enough to guarantee the success of the return to work. And then comparisons of how the person was before versus how they are now can become really powerful. For the survivor themselves, the survivor can find that really difficult and worry about the perceptions of colleagues and their boss when they're feeling themselves different from who they were and unable to meet pre-injury work standards. So the second scenario is when a survivor is looking for new work and trying to source out a new work opportunity. Again, a complicated journey. For many people, recruitment is a minefield following brain injury. Completing job applications forms online, the interview process of having to answer questions on the spot can be really, really difficult and daunting. And many people try to go back to work too early and get stung, have a bad experience, and then are unwilling to try it again later on. Perhaps for some people, people can present well socially, so can secure a job at the initial recruitment stage, but difficulties related to the injury, such as cognitive difficulties, social communication and behaviour difficulties, can cause problems in keeping a job over time. And there's a whole issue here around disclosure as well. For many survivors, it's hard to know how to share their story of what's happened to them to new people at work. So that may be a story about a brain injury at the point of an interview to account for gaps in employment. It may be just a few one-liners to relay to new work colleagues without having to go into the details of a life-changing event with every second person you meet in a work situation. So having different versions of a narrative around life after brain injury can be important. Some people choose to keep the whole thing under wraps and not disclose at all, to avoid a fear of kind of discrimination by other people and negative perceptions. If you do disclose your injury, then the law is on your side. So the Equality Act in the UK, for example, means that it's incumbent on employers to make reasonable adjustments for someone's disability, so they're not disadvantaged relative to other people in a given situation, such as a work role. But that kind of requires kind of stepping out into the spotlight and saying, this is what's happened to me. So many people try and aim for a story about the brain injury that's very empowering and talk about, this has happened to me and this is what I need to do my best in this work role. If you support me in this way, you will get 110% from me as an employee. So it's finding a collaborative, kind of empowered story about requirements that are needed to allow you to do your best in a given work role. But that is a process and a journey that's hard to undertake by oneself, and so that there's a need for support from employment and clinical services, which we'll have to think about next.